Now we'll talk about user events. User events are how the user can interact with a web page. So let me demonstrate this. So inside our p element, we can add an attribute called onClick. And then in here, we can write some JavaScript. So we can say alert, hello world, semicolon. So right here, if we now go into our page and we click, it now says hello world. So on the click, so when we click on this, it runs this JavaScript right here. So we can write the JavaScript inline, but if we want to write more advanced JavaScript, then we have to assign it a function. So in onClick, we can write clicked like this, and now in our JavaScript section, we can write function clicked right here, and then we can write a let's write a for loop. So for var I is less than 10 I plus plus, and then we can do console.log I. So now when we refresh, when we click on here, go to our console. All right, let's try that again. It's empty, and then we click on it, it runs the loop. So we can have on click, it runs some advanced JavaScript. So now let's combine this with what we learned about classes. So let's write, for example, let's write a class that says colored, and it's basically, we're just saying color is red. And then we have our function clicked, and then in here we can just grab the document.query selector and just select our p, and then we do class list dot add, and we add a color to it. So here, if we it's not add, it should be toggle. So here, if we click on it, it turns red. Click on it again, it turns black. So like this, red and black. And so right here we have the text right here, and then on the click event, it runs this function clicked. Then we define the function right here, clicked, and when it runs, it selects the first p tag, which is this, accesses the class list, and then toggles the colored class right here. And so like this, we have the class event. So other than on click, you have a couple other events. You have the on click, you have on context menu. So instead of on click, we could say on context menu. So what this is when you right click and it opens up this context menu. So on click is left click, and on context menu is right click. You also have on mouse over, which is just, when you mouse over it. And then you have on mouse out, which is similar to mouse over, where when you do mouse over, whenever the mouse goes over the text, it affects it. And then on mouse out is I can hover over it, but nothing happens, but when I move my mouse away, it applies it. So mouse over and mouse out. Then you have mouse down, which is similar to click, except in click, it happens when you click and let go. So when it applies, but on mouse down, it applies when you click down. So you can click and hold. So yeah, that's a mouse down, and you also have inversely mouse up. And does this work with the right? Yeah, it works with right click, and it works with middle click too. So mouse up and mouse down applies for any mouse click, while click in context menu are left and right. And then I think you also have mouse move, where here anytime we move our mouse even just a little bit, it applies it. Now another way you can do this is, instead of having it in your HTML, you can have the function call inside your script right here. So right here, if we select the P and let's give it an ID right here, text, then we can do text dot on click is equal to clicked. And now if we click, it works. So just like with the on click, on mouse over, on context menu, the same thing, you can do it in the JavaScript. So text.onClick is equal to click. One thing you should keep in mind with this is, you see how in here when I do clicked, I don't have these parentheses. If you add a parentheses like this won't work, because it will run this as a function call. So it will just straight up just run this function instead of assigning it. So you need the text.onClick to just equal clicked. So that way it's an assignment and not a function call. But meanwhile, if you're putting it in line, onClick equals, then it needs to be with a parentheses if it's in line. If it's in the JavaScript, there's no parentheses, so keep that in mind. There's also one more way to do this, and it's called an event listener. So the event listener is a bit more difficult. So it's more complicated, at least. So we have our text, and then we do add event listener, and then here we write click mouse over whatever. Then we write the function, which is clicked. So that's the same thing as the onClick, except using the add event listener. And the thing with add event listener compared to onClick is that you can also do text.remove event listener. So that way now it doesn't work because the event listener has been removed. Another thing with the add event listener is you can attach multiple functions to it. So with the onClick, you can only assign one function to the onClick. But if you want an event to run multiple functions, then you can add multiple add events. So if I have another function that's like click to right here. Wait, I mean not here. Clicked to right here, and then we have another function like this. Click to. So with this, both of these functions will be run. Well, if we just had a add event, if we just add a on click, then when we do the on click to, it will replace the first clicked. So with the add event listener, you can do multiple functions can be called. Now, aside from the click and keyboard listeners, you also have two more four more that are useful to know. The first one is in your HTML document right here in your HTML tag, if you have an onload function. So what this is, when the page finishes loading, then we can run this function right here. That's the onload. With the onload function, you can't do document dot onload. This function doesn't exist. You can't do this. If you want to do an onload inside the JavaScript, then you have to do document dot add event listener DOM content loaded, and then run that. So the DOM content loaded is the same thing as the HTML onload. All right. So you have onload. Then you have these next two are going to be for forms. So let me write a quick form. So let's have a form /form, and then input type text /input, and then we have a input type submit. So we have a form and a submit. So we have a, so with inputs you have a function called on focus. So now why is it okay? What can we suggest this? On focus. Let's say this dot style dot background color is red. There we go. Nope, red is not defined. Right? Dot background. Maybe it's just background. Well, it needs to be a string. Here it is. All right. So what's happening here is the on focus. Basically, what it sounds like when you click on a text input, or when you have to type in the input, the on focus will run this JavaScript right here. So you notice that I typed this dot. This keyword just takes the input. So instead of having to do the query selector input, if it's inline, this only works if it's inline. If it's inline, then you can do this dot, and then you can manipulate the JavaScript. So then you have a similar thing with the submit. So if you do on, wait, no, not in the submit button, in the form tag, I mean. So in the form, if you do on submit is equal to, and then right here we can write validate form, and then we can create a JavaScript function to validate your form. So I mean, what validate means is like, if you're logging in or creating an account, and you click create account, but then you get a red error text that says password is too short, or password needs a string, or the email is incorrect. That's form validation. So I'll be showing you that later on. That's going to be if you remember our form that we did for the HTML and CSS portions, we're going to be doing form validation in the JavaScript at the end of the JavaScript module. So that's the on focus, on submit. Then you also have one more called the CSS transition. So if you remember back in the last class, we had a box that said welcome to the page, and that had an animation popping up and down. Well, we can have a JavaScript that waits for the animation to finish. So that's so we just grab the div, so whatever the div was, let's say it was called welcome box. Welcome box dot add event listener, and then transitioned. Then you can run the whatever function right here. So transition means that when it finishes its animation, it will run this event. It will run the function. So that's the transitioned function right here. Now then, let me get rid of some of this. and have it so we only have our text right here. So when you do a event, you can here, let me demonstrate. So you have our on click event. So on click, clicked right here, run that function. Oops. So in the parentheses right here, we can add the keyword event. And what this does is I can print it, console.log event. So when you click, it did not work. Is it because we needed to do it text.onClick is equal to clicked? All right, that worked. Okay. So when you do the on click, then we get this, we can add this event keyword, and that gives us a whole bunch of information related to the event. So it gives us the time, gives us the type, the X and Y coordinates, all sorts of information that you can use if you need to. So let me show you something you can do with the event. So let's say we have the document .body .on mouse over is equal to, and then let's make it an anonymous function. Event. Actually, let's write display chords, right? And then up here we do function display chords event. And now in here we have a var chord x, and we make that event dot client x. Var chord y is event dot client y. Then var chords is equal to chord x plus chord y. And now we should be able to do document.body inner HTML is equal to chords. Nope. Read property of undefined client x. Oh wait, need to remove these parentheses. Here we go. Now chord x is not defined at HTML. Oh, there's no capital. Chord x and chord y. Here we go. Okay, that's on mouse over. So only if we leave the screen and come back do these coordinates update. So instead of mouse over, instead it should be not mouse over or mouse out, mouse move. There it is. So there you go. Now it updates whenever the mouse moves. So now it gives us the coordinates of wherever our mouse is on the screen per pixel, I believe. So here's a little widget we made using JavaScript and the event listener. Let's make one more, because why not? Let's do document.body on key up is equal to typed. Okay. And then instead of this body, we do document dot query selector, and then we grab the P inner HTML. And on key up, what did I really like this? Typed should be a function. And then now we create one more function called typed with the event. And what I want for this is I want it to display, whenever you type something, to display the typed text. So first we need to see what sort of information that the event object contains. So here's our keyboard event, and let's see here, type target, here it is, here's the key, so it's control. So we write document.body.append event.key, and here we go. Hello world, how are you? Here we are. So we just made like a very strange typing setup in just JavaScript and HTML. So if you really wanted to, you could write like a word processor like Microsoft Word. Now that you know about events, you should know about event bubbling. So event bubbling basically is the calling of events following the document model. So what this means is I have this 3x3 table right here that consists of table dimensions, table rows, and this table tag. You can see right here that all three of these tags have on-click events that print to the console. So when I click on the first table dimension, I'm only clicking the table dimension, so it should only print TD. But when I do, that's not what's happening. It prints everything else as well. That's because this table dimension is inside the table row, which is inside the table. So when I click on the table dimension, since it exists inside the table row, it's a part of the table row. So I'm technically clicking the table row as well, and also the table tag right here. So this is called bubbling, and it also follows an order. It goes from the more specific out. So it first prints the TD, then the TR, and then the table, because the TD is first called, then the TR, then the table, like so. And yeah, so this is called bubbling. So if you ever have a problem where when you do the on click, it runs an extra function where it's not supposed to, and that's because it's caused by bubbling. So you can stop bubbling by using this method called event.stopPropagation. So now when I click on it, it only prints TD, and the stop propagation just basically stops it from bubbling upwards. So you should be careful with the stop propagation, because let's say for example that you're working on a website, right? And you make the website, you have like on-click functions that have stop propagation on them, and then later on your client wants a code that tracks click metrics. So what that means is, like, if someone visits a website, what parts of the websites do they click, what links do they visit, and so on. So an easy way to do that is just to go into the body, have an on click that runs a function that just saves, whatever they click on to like an array, and then save that to a database. So that way you can look, this link has been clicked 500 times in the last day, and so on. But this won't run if we have a stop propagation anywhere, somewhere in the website. So you got to be careful about that. Now, you can use the bubbling to our advantage by, let's say for example, we want to write a script where we have this array, and whenever I click on one of these boxes, the box should highlight in red, right? So I can use bubbling to my advantage for this, where in my table right here I can do on click and highlight. Well, actually no, let's I'll do that in the JavaScript actually, because I need to access the event object. So in my script I do document dot query selector table, and let me save that as a variable. Bar table is equal to query selector. So now I do table dot add, or table dot on click is equal to highlight, and highlight just like that. And now up here I create my function. So function highlight event, and now we can do let's create a function, a variable target, and that's going to be event.target. That way I don't have to type event.target all the time. And then I could do if target dot tag name is not equal to td, then return. So that means that if I click on something that's not the td, like the tr or the table, like if I accidentally click on the space between two tds, then nothing's going to happen. And then right here I would write actually I would right here I would create another variable called selected, and just make that empty for now. And then I would write if selected. So this checks to see if a selected exists. Then I would do selected dot class list dot class list dot remove, and then remove a highlighted class. So what this means is if we go to our style right here and we create a highlighted class, and we just change the background color to be red or something, and we do selected is equal to target, and then selected dot class list dot add highlighted. So let me test it, and yes, all right, it works. So here's what I did. So on the click it runs the highlight function. Then I created the target variable, and that's the event.target. The target is basically, the thing you're clicking on, the thing that triggers the event. So that would be the TD. It can also be the TR and the table. So because it could be the TR table, I have this if target.tag name is not equal to TD. So if the tag name is TR or table or body or whatever, then the return, it basically just exits out of the function. So if the target is anything but TD, it will exit out. So if I did click on a TD, then it will say if selected. So we have our selector right here, and because the selected is empty, the first time this if runs, it will be false. So this will be skipped over, and then the selected will equal the target right here. So the selected will become the event target, and then we take the target and then we add the highlighted class to it. Now the next time I click on another box, the selected becomes true because the selected is now this box right here. So because this is true, we remove the highlighted class, and then whatever we clicked on gains the highlighted class. And so like this, we highlight one of the 9 table boxes. And so like this, we can add like multiple rows and columns. So instead of a 3x3, I can make this a 4x4, and the same function still works. And all of it is just based off of the on click of the table. And so like this, we take advantage of the bubbling function because we're actually, even though we're clicking the TD, because it bubbles up and it also counts the table as being clicked, we can run this function instead of having to like figure out a way to measure the TDs or like apply the function to all TDs and stuff.